There's a woman in my riding who recently reached out to me as she has 4 kids and she relies on the food bank. She feels desperate and without hope. She just wants the dignity of being able to provide for her kids. Will the Liberals hear
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Speaker, I think that you've heard it from this side, and we will keep on saying it. We are there to support Canadians, and you hear about the many programs that they voted against that we are putting in place to support Canadians. But if we're going to rely on that food report, also should look at what it said about, for example, the price of beef, which says nearly a decade of drought in the leading beef-producing area of Canada has resulted in the smallest number of cattle since the late 1980s. Reduced supply and consistent demand creates upward pressure. The cost of food is going up because of climate change. There is no tax on food, but we will be there to provide the programs to help Canadians.
The Honourable Member for York-Durham.
Here's a resident they're not supporting, Mr. Speaker. He wrote to me and said, quote, "I have lived in the same neighborhood for more than a decade, and almost every essential cost of living has increased dramatically. He had the receipts for his groceries from $200 a month to $600 a month. And what did the Prime Minister say? We should judge him by the price of groceries at the store. Well, that's some judgment, Mr. Speaker, some failure. And next year will get worse. Canadians will pay $1,000 or more, according to the Food Rights Report. Given those struggles, will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spending, scrap the carbon tax, and get rid of the new fuel tax?"
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's almost the holidays. Goodwill to all. The opposition leader says, nah, let's circle back next year after my leadership review. Meanwhile, hardworking Canadians wait for a well-earned tax break. They wait for a $50,000 first-time homebuyer's tax cut. Children wait for healthy meals at school. Families and seniors wait for affordable housing. And in addition to that, that member won't even stand up in this House and support the healthcare infrastructure fund that would build a hospital in Durham region that's badly needed for families. He should be ashamed of himself.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic, l'Érable, L'Aude-Binière. The Prime Minister sat just across the way, made it a personal issue. He told Canadians that he wanted to be judged on the price of groceries. Irrespective of the excuses the Liberals keep repeating in the House today, it was the Prime Minister himself who decided what he wanted to be judged on. Well, not only has he failed miserably to bring prices down, but the bill will increase by another $1,000 next year. Why has the Prime Minister duped Canadians who are increasingly lining up at food banks because of his inflationary spending? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's rather unfortunate to spend so much energy to be elected, only just to harp on the same thing over and over again, speaking points from their leader to answer. It's even sadder to see that they vote against the childcare benefits, against the school food program that is saving $800 for the most vulnerable families. They voted against affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. They voted against the dental care system. When he talks about inflationary spending, I would like him to tell us what he even means by that. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, L'Aude-Binière. Consultants, bureaucracy, all of that. No Liberals has stood up to defend the Prime Minister who said to Canadians, "You will judge me on the price of groceries." That is what he said. 36% of Quebecers face food insecurity, 3 million visits per month to food banks in Quebec. The Prime Minister's wealthy friends are certainly not affected by the reality of families skipping meals. They have enough money, they eat their fill. He promised to lower food prices. He misled Canadians. Will he stop his inflationary spending so that families can finally eat their fill, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. In the previous answer, Mr. Speaker, I listed everything against which they voted that supports people in his riding, Quebecers and Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We were elected to give opportunities to all Canadians and to all Quebecers, and that's what we're doing. 54,000 jobs created in November, 67,000 in October, 60,000 created in September. Unemployment is going down, inflation is going down, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, we are building the strongest G7 economy. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that we needed to judge him on the cost of groceries. 8 months later, the price of food has exploded and families can't feed themselves. The 2026 report forecasts a worsening situation in Saguenay. 70 organizations that offer food assistance confirm that requests have gone up faster than what is available. When will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spending so that Canadians can eat their fill? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize how good my colleagues' local teams are, hockey-wise, but what he doesn't recognise is that no one in the Saguenay is saying, take these programs away. Remove the school food program, we don't like it. Remove support for organizations, we don't like it. Remove support for volunteers, we hate that. Remove the housing benefits. No one is saying that in the Saguenay, Mr. Speaker. The member should vote with us to keep these supports for the people of the Saguenay and elsewhere in our country. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals need to stop burying their heads in the sand, and they need to be aware of what is actually happening on the ground. The majority of requests now come from families where both parents work. We're no longer talking about single parents, and that's alarming. The Canadian Food Report predicts an additional $1,000 per year per family for food, one of the largest increases ever seen in our history. When will the government allow Canadians to finally feed themselves with dignity? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, the Minister for Public Services and Procurement, asked a very pertinent question earlier. What is an inflationary expenditure at the end of the day? Month after month, day after day, week after week, in these halls, we're asking, is it supporting aluminium workers? Is it helping kids eat at school? Is it helping people with their dental care? Is that inflationary spending? Is it health transfers to province? What is an inflationary spending? After all of these months, could we finally get a definition of an inflationary spending?
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in my father's dying days, he mustered the courage to stand in this chamber to fight for the passage of his private member's bill that set out a vision for the prairie provinces to continue playing their prominent role in our federation. That vision was realized with the passage of the Green Prairie Economy Act, which received royal assent shortly after his passing on December 12, 2022. Can the minister responsible for prairies share how the newly announced Prairie Partnership Initiative enhances this vision and establishes new opportunities for growth across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the member for Winnipeg South Centre for his question and for his continued support as we advance the legacy that his father set in motion for a stronger prairie economy.
Here, here.
The Prairie Partnership Initiative is a new coordinated approach that gives significant prairie projects a clear pathway through the federal system so that they can move from ambition to action. By aligning federal expertise with prairie priorities, the PPI will help meet this critical moment by positioning the prairies at the
Honourable Member for Middlesex.
The Prime Minister told Canadians that he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, Canadians have judged, and they're angry. When the Liberals came into office in 2015, the Canadian grocery bill was $159 a week. And after 10 years, it's more than doubled now to $338. Greg from Komoka wrote me to say that he's sick of the rules for you and not for me attitude. Speaker, families can't afford meat and they're lining up at food banks while these Liberals continue to feast at public expense. So why does this Prime Minister think that he deserves luxury while Canadians can't afford lunch?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, watching the leader of the Conservative Party lose in slow motion today has been a little bit amusing, but what's more interesting is watching him do it with a big grin on his face because he's so proud of himself. He's proud to vote against childcare, and he's proud to vote against school food programs, and he's so proud to vote against affordable housing. But what else he's proud of today, he's also proud to call climate change just weather. And he's also proud to refer to Indigenous people with a possessive noun. They're not ours. Mr. Speaker, he seems very proud of himself, but you know what Canadians are proud of? They're proud of our institutions. They're proud of programs that support them, and they're proud of this side, on this government. We're supporting them.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Are starving, and this member is making fun of things, and I say the Liberals should all be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Bad Liberal policies are what's driving up the cost of food by $1,000 next year. Caitlin from Thames Centre says the government is driving us into systemic destruction at the cost of food, fuel, and groceries soar. Elber from Strathroy asks why the Prime Minister promised cheaper groceries, safer streets, and more homes, but after 7 months, all he's delivered is higher prices, higher crime, and less for hardworking Canadians. So do the Liberals even care that there's over 2.2 million visits to food banks, or are they just here to help Brookfield line the Prime Minister's pockets?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, there's no taxes on groceries. There's no taxes on food. There will never be taxes on groceries, and there will never be taxes on food. And that member's a farmer. She should know better. She should know that the industrial carbon price has absolutely no impact on the cost of groceries, Mr. Speaker. They keep talking about things like the price of coffee. Maybe they should stand up and talk about how industrial carbon pricing in Canada affects the Colombian price of coffee, Mr. Speaker. It's absurd, Mr. Speaker. They're very, very proud to vote against all these programs that support Canadians, but if they could just provide Canadians with one solution to help them at the grocery store over this holiday season. Merry Christmas. Yeah, truly, Merry Christmas.
The honourable member for Saskatoon South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? I have a better idea. Come to my food bank. 23,000 visits a month at the Saskatoon Food Bank. And better yet, we have a resurgence of scurvy in northern Saskatchewan. The Canadian Food Price Report confirms additional $1,000 will be needed next year to feed a family of 4. So is the Prime Minister ready to remove the industrial carbon tax?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's see what has this tired and old opposition accomplished in the last 10 years. Addressing food affordability, zero achievement. Addressing housing needs, zero achievement. Building major projects, zero achievement. Addressing challenge of tariffs, zero achievement. But their negative attitude towards Canada must stop. Because if they don't stop attacking Canada, I'm saying today I'm going to take every single one of them off my Christmas card list.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, last week the President of the Treasury Board held and hosted a co-summit on reduction of the red tape, bringing together the leaders from across the country. Could the President update the House what came out of this summit and how this work will help cut red tape, speed up approvals, and strengthen Canada's economy?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. President, I would like to thank my colleague for this excellent question. The summit was an important step forward, building on the 60-day red tape review we launched in July. We recently announced a new series of horizontal reviews. These reviews look across government to eliminate regulatory barriers and deliver faster and more reliable services, so we can grow our economy faster and build Canada strong, and to build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, 8 months later, those prices have skyrocketed. I've heard countless horror stories in Edmonton of families struggling to afford food. I've even heard of single moms selling their furniture online to pay for rent and groceries. Just this week, Miranda from North Edmonton told me, I honestly don't know how people are getting by. It's heat or eat. When will these Liberals cut their inflationary spending and gas the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Secretary of State for C.
2025 winds down and we're reviewing our Spotify Wrapped. Let's look at the Conservatives' 2025 Wrapped. In 2025, the Conservatives lost their 4th election in a row, spent Alberta's money on a by-election so they could say they created at least one job, invented imaginary taxes, and presented a platform with no plan to support seniors or families. Mr. Speaker, they need to work on their playlist because they are not listening to the same tunes as Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The former Liberal Environment Minister says this government approved a bitumen pipeline that abandons Canada's climate goals and risks BC's coast. In this House, the Prime Minister said British Columbia and impacted First Nations must agree to this project. In BC, the Energy Minister claimed free, prior, and informed consent is required. But the MOU signed between Ottawa and Alberta says no such thing. Liberals are telling one story here, another in BC, and yet another in Alberta. Canadians deserve to know, is consent for this pipeline required or not?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was very clear in this House. He said that the agreement requires agreement from British Columbia, requires the agreement of First Nations. That has been said in this House, and we stand by that right here, right now, and we will continue to.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One section of the enormous Bill C-15, over 600 pages of omnibus budget bill, that's not yet been even mentioned in this place, and it wasn't mentioned in the budget either. So the idea that the Budget Implementation Act just implements things in the budget is belied by pages 301 to 304, with it exempt at ministerial discretion the application of Canadian law to any entity, which could be people or corporations, at the discretion of the minister with no public oversight. Can anyone here, particularly the Minister of Finance, explain?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
I agree with the member that the budget bill is full of really great measures for this country, but one thing we can all acknowledge is that Canada has world-class innovators and entrepreneurs, those of whom will help us build the strongest economy in the G7. As part of that process, we're reducing red tape to broaden the use of something called regulatory sandboxes to help foster and spur research and development and innovation. We'll do this in a responsible way, in a forward-looking way, and in a temporary way. These will be authorizations that are limited, but these will help us keep up with the speed of innovation in this country. Thank you.
And that concludes the question period.
I'd like to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset. I am now prepared to rule on the point of order raised. Well, we're going to wait a few moments.
promises this week. He promised that Canada would have the fastest growing economy in the G7. He's delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 with the second highest unemployment. He promised to spend less. His deficit is 100% more than Justin Trudeau's. He promised that there would be more investment in Canada. $54 billion has left in the 7 months he's been Prime Minister. And he promises to push out, now he admits he's going to push out $1 trillion more, and we'll return to that in a minute. He promised that he would negotiate a win with the U.S. with a deal by July the 21st. So far, no deal, no win. American tariffs on Canada have doubled. And yesterday, after promising our auto workers and lumber workers he would defend them, he sold them out. He sold them out and accepted that, a day after he left the White House, the Secretary of Commerce said they will be keeping tariffs on Canadian finished automobiles, which will devastate our sector. Already, we're losing thousands of jobs in Ingersoll, 800 jobs with Cami in Ingersoll, hundreds of jobs in Oshawa with GM, while that company invests $4 billion more in the United States. We've also had 150 workers in Windsor told to down tools in Stellantis as that company announces it will invest $8 billion more in the United States. But Mark Carney has sold out our auto workers and gotten absolutely nothing in return. Then there's our lumber workers. Since Mark Carney got elected promising to end the American tariffs, those tariffs have doubled, with massive job losses across British Columbia, Northern Ontario, and rural Quebec expected as a result of this latest Carney failure. I think we can now conclude that Mark Carney's entire elbows up campaign was a gigantic fraud. He didn't mean a word of it. His wife's firm was putting out memos in the middle of the campaign saying, don't worry about the Liberals promising to counter tariff and be tough on the U.S. They don't really mean it. They won't really do it. He was quietly removing the tariffs while going to campaign rallies promising to put them back on. He told the president in a phone call, I don't mean all that stuff I'm saying about you. So it means he's two-faced. And since the election has happened, he's done exactly the opposite of everything he promised. And I should be clear, this was not a promise. This was the promise he ran on in the election. It was the only thing that got him elected. He said, ignore 10 years of rising food prices, housing costs, out-of-control immigration and crime, because I'm the only guy who can negotiate with the Americans. And that turned out to be a gigantic fraud. So the entire foundation of Mark Carney's election campaign was not only a broken promise, it was a fraud for which thousands of Canadians are paying today with lost jobs. We cannot trust anything that Mark Carney says. And then there's this $1 trillion. It's time for him to do some explaining. Because I'm just reading his quote here. He says, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone. Probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement we expect to get. So that means he intends to put right in the agreement that he's going to push $1 trillion of investment to the United States. How is he going to do that? He said it would be private investment, so he's going to pass a law forcing pension funds and insurance companies to push their money to the States out of Canada. Is he just going to keep in place the high taxes and anti-development policies that have already forced hundreds of billions of dollars of investment abroad? And are the Americans committing to send $1 trillion back? He says this is just normal capital flows between countries. Surely, then President Trump is going to be committing to $1 trillion of investment in Canada. To be clear, $1 trillion is the equivalent of a third of our entire GDP. It's like literally all the economic activity for 4 consecutive months. And Mark Carney wants to send it away. This means factories, mines, mills, and other businesses closing in Canada and opening in the United States. Where was that in Mark Carney's election platform? That he was going to push $1 trillion of Canadian investment to the U.S. I'm very curious if any of you could find that. In fact, he has broken all of his promises, and we can't trust him anymore. We're in the House of Commons today. We are debating a Conservative motion exposing the insanity of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Remember, Justin Trudeau promised 10 years ago that
This Black Friday, elevate your style with Temu Retro Cloud Handbag. Crafted from top grain material with golden tone hardware, it's the perfect mix of vintage and elegance. Use it as a clutch or attach the strap for effortless day-to-night style. Classic, refined, and now at an unbeatable Black
So good afternoon to all of you. Bonjour. Je tiens d'abord à souligner que nous sommes réunis ici aujourd'hui sur le territoire traditionnel non cédé de la nation algonquine Anishinaabe. Thank you for being with us today. It is a great pleasure to join the Honourable Sean Fraser, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, and the Honourable Rechi Valdez, Minister of Women and Gender Equality, for this important announcement. We are also joined this morning and this afternoon by Honourable Ruby Saura, Secretary of State Combating Crime, and the Honourable Nathalie Provost, Secretary of State Nature. I also want to welcome some very special guests here today. Monique Saint-Germain, General Counsel with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. Her role includes working closely with Crown attorneys across Canada to ensure victims of child sexual abuse material are heard in court, and the impact of online child exploitation is taken into consideration at the sentencing of offenders. And Neka McGregor, co-founder and executive director of Women at the Centre. She is an advocate who works with government and other organizations to eradicate violence against women. This is a good moment to note that the topics we are discussing could be very distressing. Please know that there is help available. We have officials in the room who can help you find resources or supports if you should need them. Today, our government introduced Bill C-16, the Protecting Victims Act, in Parliament. This is a significant step in our efforts to protect victims and survivors of sexual violence, gender-based violence, and intimate partner violence, and to keep our kids safe from predators. Dans un monde meilleur, nous n'aurions pas à nous réunir ici pour discuter des crimes atroces, tels que la violence motivée par le contrôle et la peur qui touchent principalement les femmes, les incidents traumatisants et perturbants liés aux infractions d'ordre sexuel commises contre des enfants, et les victimes et les personnes survivantes qui se sentent dépassées et revictimisées par le système de justice. In a better world, we would not have to stand here and talk about horrific crimes such as violence driven by control and fear that overwhelmingly targets women, traumatic and disturbing incidents of child sexual offenses, and victims and survivors who feel overwhelmed and re-victimized in the justice system. Tragically, this is our reality. These issues impact people in every community, in every corner of the country. But we know that change is possible, and we must come with a collective effort from all levels of government and civil society. À l'approche de la fin des 16 jours d'activisme contre la violence fondée sur le sexe, il est important de réaffirmer notre engagement à dénoncer la violence sur toutes ses formes et à l'encontre de toutes les personnes. As we near the end of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we must recommit ourselves to speaking out against violence in all its forms against all people. That speaks to the need for legislation such as Protecting Victims Act, which would help save lives, prevent heinous crimes, and ensure that every family in Canada is kept safe. But before we talk about what the bill would do, it is important to hear about why these changes are so critical and so urgently needed. On that, I ask you to please help me welcome our first speaker, Monique Saint-Germain. Monique.
Thank you, Minister Fraser, and everyone in government for inviting us today. My name is Monique Saint-Germain, and I am General Counsel for the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. As an organization dedicated to protecting children from online harms, we are at a pivotal moment in this fight. For more than 2 decades, our agency has operated cybertip.ca, our national tip line for reporting online crimes against children. What we are seeing today is unlike anything we have faced before. Reports of online sexual luring targeting Canadian children have surged to unprecedented levels. Last year alone, cybertip.ca received over 2,700 reports of child luring. That represents an increase of more than 800% over the past 5 years. These numbers are not just statistics. They represent real children, real families, and real harms. But this isn't a simple problem. It is complex and it's serious. It intersects with broader issues like sextortion, gender-based violence, and the lack of guardrails on new technologies. The rapid evolution of online spaces means that our policy responses need to adapt just as quickly. This is why today's announcement really matters. It shows that the federal government is prepared to take action to protect our most vulnerable. We welcome the amendments to the criminal code that aim to strengthen online child protection because they send a clear signal to everyone that the safety of children online is a national priority. For example, the new offense of threats to distribute child sexual abuse material are welcome. The increase or the expansion of the availability of protection and prohibition orders for those up to age 18 under Section 161.1 and 810.1 are also very welcome. The criminalization of deepfakes for non-consensual distribution of intimate images and the strengthening of the federal mandatory reporting law will all help to assist in bringing criminals to justice. At the same time, we know that this is only the beginning. While today's announcement is a very important step forward, more must be done. That includes stronger regulation of online spaces with clear guardrails and accountability for online platforms. Through these comprehensive measures, together we can ensure that survivors of child sexual abuse know we are here for them and that they do not have to continue this fight by themselves. We look forward to continuing to work with the Government of Canada to safeguard children and youth from coast to coast. Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to invite Ms. Neka McGregor to share a few words with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister Fraser. Thank you, Minister Valdez, for inviting me to say a few words to everyone today. As mentioned, my name is Neka McGregor, and I'm a survivor of attempted intimate femicide. I'm also the co-founder of a very unique organization that was created in 2008 by and for survivors of all forms of gender-based violence. We've been advocating for ages for the types of changes that have been introduced today, and I'm really, really grateful to Minister Fraser, Minister Valdez, for actively listening to the calls from survivors. I want you to imagine waking up on January 1st, 2026, to news that 187 women and girls have been brutally murdered by a gang of men. Imagine the shock and the outrage and the urgent calls for real action to be taken to address this lethal form of gender-based violence. This is precisely what happened in 2024, but those killings didn't happen in one day. They were spread out over a series of days, weeks, and months. That fact that 187 women were killed but was spread over a 12-month period in 2024, I think has lulled many into a false and dangerous sense of ease and security, because society at large thinks that these are isolated incidents and not part of a pattern of gender and social injustices that continues to position women and girls as disposable. You think you can guarantee that this can never happen to a woman or girl in your life, because somehow the women and girls in your lives are insulated from this type of violence. The sad truth is that they are not. None of us are. This past weekend was the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, when we gathered in public and in private to honor the memory of 14 women murdered at École Polytechnique on December 6, 1989. That single event shifted the Canadian psyche in so many ways, but not sufficiently to end these types of killings of women and girls. And I want to share with you very quickly a couple of stats that will help everybody understand what is at stake. So last year, the 187 women that I mentioned were violently killed in this country. This year, we're currently at 137, and we've still got 3 weeks to go. So we know that that number will increase. In the overwhelming majority of cases in 2024, in 93% of instances where the perpetrator was identified, he was male, meaning that a woman and girl is killed every 2 days in this country, and most often by a man or a boy that she knows. Half of these women were killed by a current or former intimate partner, and 28% were killed by another family member. 77% were killed in a private location, such as their home, where we all expect that we're going to be safe. I want you to consider the righteous indignation we still feel about what happened to those 14 young women 36 years ago, and how easy it feels to skip to the next news cycle each time another femicide happens. I think it's because society sees these killings as single incidents. They are not. They are deliberate, they are gendered, and they are absolutely preventable. As one of the expert members of the Canadian Femicide Observatory for Justice and Accountability, under the leadership of Dr. Myrna Dawson, we have been tracking femicides in Canada since 2018. Marlene Ham and her team at the Ontario Association of Interval and Transition Houses have been tracking femicides in Ontario. Myself, Myrna Dawson, and other activists like Megan Walker, and most importantly, family members of other femicide victims, have been raising awareness of the hate-motivated killings of women and girls, primarily by men and boys, in the Canadian context. Many of us have been advocating for the types of changes to the criminal code similar to what's been tabled under Bill C-16.
Hi and welcome back. Today I'm here with Manpreet Joshi, and she is from SIA Immigration Solutions, and she's here today to talk a little bit about the international student admissions and visa. So hi, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for coming back and talking to us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So can you, to start off, just give us a brief overview of the International Student Admission and Visa College Change Visitor Short?
Yes, so first we're going to start with the International Student Admissions and Visas.
Okay.
So international students, as we know, these are potential students who are looking to get admitted into the Canadian colleges and universities and get a visa and come here.
Mm-hmm.
International student program has developed a lot over time. Right now, there are a number of international students in Canada. There is a whole lot of activity going on. They sometimes change schools. So first, we're going to talk about the first part, that when they apply from overseas.
Okay.
What are the factors that they can take into consideration when they're applying from overseas?
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of things that are first. It's not always about the visa filing process. The admission process is equally crucial because if you get into the right school, the right program at the right time, your visa will go more smoothly.
Okay.
So that can involve doing some research, like what kind of studies you've done previously.
Right.
Are you choosing the similar program, or even that doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot go for a different program. It can be a little bit aligned to your studies, but you can also go for a little bit different program as long as you have a reasoning and as long as your consultant or you yourself or whoever is helping you to apply know how to represent it.
Okay.
It can also be related to the recent job that you've done.
Okay.
And most of the times it has seen that students whenever they're looking to get an offer letter from Canadian school, or you can say the Canadian college or university, they seem to be in a little bit of rush. They're more likely going to, okay, this consultant told me that you're gonna get offer letter in like 2 days. I'm gonna get and apply for my visa.
Right.
That is more into if you are if you're changing a school within Canada, that is different versus you're applying from overseas. When you're applying from overseas, you must do a whole lot of homework. Ask questions to your agent. Ask them, okay, which area, which province, which field, which skill can give me an easier permanent residency.
Right. Yeah.
Ask yourself, why am I going? Where should I go? When should I go? How should I apply? How this is going to transit to permanent residency.
Right.
Don't just take an offer letter and rush into visa applying.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a short experience. I had a couple of years ago, I was on an India visit. I met a client, and she has consulted us for the student visa. And we have advised her that the next intake is not available in any public school. Most of the seats are full, so we advise you to the intake next to it. That was January. And then I'm gonna keep it short. So then she came. She called me after a couple months, and she was already in Canada. And I told her, didn't we tell you that there was no school available? How did you come? She said, no, I found out a private school and I just quickly applied and quickly got the visa. I'm quickly here. Now I want to change. I mean, I said, yes, you can still change. But look at the amount of time you're gonna waste now, right? So it's a good idea if you plan ahead.
Yeah.
So if you talk to somebody, or even if you have a friend or family who's helping, make sure they have a thorough knowledge of what they're doing.
100%.
A lot of time it's sort of people don't pay much attention that it is that much detail to choose a school and apply for the right offer letter. No, not just rushing in to get an offer letter. Yes.
Yeah, that homework is very important. Can you provide an overview of the current situation regarding transferring colleges within Canada for international students?
Yes. So when, like an example I gave.
Yes.
Of course, now she has done it. It's fine. Now she's here. Now, don't if your goal is to get PGWP in Canada and transit it to permanent residency, then it is even more crucial to choose the right school.
Right.
Because all schools are not providing PGWPs. Of course, most of the Canadian schools, be it private, be it public, has a very good educational system. We can't question that. But it's very individual choice that, okay, I want 3-year PGWP, the postgraduate work permit, or 2-year or 1 year, whatever your requirement is. So I should choose the right school based on that. So now if you've done that mistake, like the girl did, you're in a school that's not giving you a PGWP, then you must change before it's too late. And changing school within Canada is not a problem from immigration.
Okay.
So a lot of times students have this question, can I change? Will that impact my future immigration applications? Will that impact my permanent residency? No. It may just, if you're in a school that's not giving you PGWP, or that's that you're into a program that's not giving you some sort of skill that you want, changing school will actually make the situation easier for you.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so it's gonna make it easier. And when you're changing, there are again certain factors that you need to be careful on. Okay. Now here, when you're changing, here it's opposite to when you're applying. Here you cannot delay. There, do your homework, talk to a couple of consultants, ask questions, ask your consultant all the questions you have when you're initially applying from your home country. But when you're changing within Canada, of course, you should still do your homework, but here you cannot delay. Because the more you delay, the more you are delaying your new program starting date that you're going to start, and the seats may fill up. So here you need to be a little bit proactive. And so the one point in changing school is don't delay too much. If you have change in mind, get started working on it. And second point is, when you change, you must change your DLI. And if you change with somebody, like if you change with us, our professionals know that you must change your DLI with IRCC. So a lot of times students has a question, do I need to change my study permit? Do I need to apply another study permit in Canada if I change school? No. You just change your designated learning institute number with IRCC, And if you change it with us, we know how to change it, and this service comes at no cost when you get admission through us to the school, and we don't charge anything in most cases for admissions as well.
Right.
Both of the services, getting admission to a new school, if you're changing a school in Canada, and changing your DLI is free of cost from us.
Amazing. Awesome. Can you tell me how straightforward
حاجة في غزة، فهي بتعني لي كثير. هي البلد تبعتي، هي الأم الحاضنة. سافرت شفت بلاد كثير، ما ارتحتش إلا لما أرجع هنا شم هوا غزة. عارف مين هذا؟ عارف مين؟ مصطفى تبعنا. سيب انا بجيله استاذ. شوف معه وين برا. عيلتي عيلة كبيرة، في 6 بنات، خواتي كبار متجوزات 5 حبيبكم نختصوا جميعا. بالعكس أنا علاقتي مع أولادي خواتي عم يسموني أنا الخال الفرفوش، لأني أنا اللي دايماً بعمل أجواء، بلعبهم، بضحكهم.
أحسن حاجة في الحياة إنه أنت تستغل وقتك فيها، إنه تصاحب ولاد أختك ولاد أخوك، أقسم بالله أحسن من كل العالم.
أصل عائلتي من بلدة صغيرة اسمها حلقات في منطقة زدود. على كلام ستي اللي حكت لي، كان عمرها 6 سنين لما انهاجروا بال48 من الأراضي هذه، فشردوا للبحث عن الحياة. ستي حكت لي إنه أبوها أخذها من هناك هي وكل العيلة، ونزحوا على مخيم جباليا في غزة، وأبوها رجع إنه يجيب أغراض من هناك، لليوم ما بينش، ما حد بيعرف مصيره. كجيل اليوم كل الأطفال بتعاني وبتنشأ على فكرة إنه إسرائيل محتلة ومغتصبة، لأنه هذا اللي بنشوفه في الواقع.
الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
ما هو من يوم ما انخلقنا على الحياة هذه وإحنا في حرب، يعني إحنا انخلقنا في حالة حرب. هيك إحنا كمواطن غزاوي، أنت بتنخلق في غزة فأنت في حالة حرب على مدار الحياة. كان في حصار، كان في قصف، كان في موت، في المقابل كان في فرح، في حياة، في انبساط. يعني بنحاول إنه إحنا نعيش على قد ما بنقدر.
אני בדיוק מצלמת לו. סרטון.
בערב של ה6 לאוקטובר היינו בבית, כל המשפחה. צחי הכין פקניה בתנור, יין, מוזיקה, נוהל משפחת עידן רגיל.
נו, איפה?
לתופס שהוא מפסיד. מעיין הצטרפה. מעיין היא הבכורה. ילדה קסומה. הכי נוחה בעולם. למיקי. נו, את לא שרה. הכל הלך איתה חלק. שחר בן 10, חמוד, יש לו גומה אחת והוא קסום, הוא הבייבי בוי שלי. יעל, בת 12, חגגה לא מזמן בפברואר. יכולה לחיות על סושי בעיקרון. ואחרי זה יעל הצטרפה, וצחוקים של משפחה הכי טיפוסית רגילה שיש, בפינה היפה שלנו בנחל עוז, בפרגולה. והלכנו לישון, מאוחר. בדיוק אמרתי לצחי, ואיזה כיף זה שהמשפחה שלנו כזאת נפלאה. וזהו.
نشطات المقاومة تنطلق باتجاه الأراضي المحتلة.
We're following major breaking news right now. Thousands of rockets have been fired from the Gaza Strip into Israel.
An unprecedented early morning series of attacks on Israel.
6:30 صحيت على صوت انفجارات صواريخ كأنه يوم القيامة. أجا أخوي يجري عندي على الغرفة يحكي لي إيش فيه، وأنا أحكي له إيش فيه، فما حدش كان فاهم إشي.
The Palestinian terrorist group Hamas launched an offensive by air, sea, and land at sunrise.
A group committed to the destruction of Israel and designated a terror organization by many Western governments.
بسم الله بسم الله فاتح.
איזה הזוי. איזה טרף. You ready? תמיד איתי עדיין על היד, את רואה? אנשים שואלים אותי, מה הייתה במסיבה? יצא למישהו לשאול אותי. הוא מזכיר תמיד, מה? חבר שלי היה לא בתקופה הכי טובה וזה. אמרתי, יאללה, אני אקנה כרטיס, אני הייתי ביחד שם במסיבה, ויהיה כיף. ונפתיע אותו במסיבה, כאילו. לא, מתחילים במסיבה, מתחילים, רוקדים, פשוטים, נהנים, הולכים, חוזרים, את המסיבה. עד 6:30 בול. זה, התחיל בטילים. עכשיו חווים את המוזיקה. התחיל לגמר לשמוע את היריות. רצנו מתחת הבמה.
Because you just know at some point in your life you have to get wildly honest if you are doing the things that really matter. It's the hardest thing. You have to say, is the things that I'm creating and doing, do I feel like it matters?
Demonstrations. Robert Reich is a professor at Berkeley.
What did the University of California, Berkeley do when the administration asked for the names of demonstrators who are pro-Palestinian? The administration, instead of saying, no, we are protecting our freedom of speech, we don't want to intimidate our students or faculty. No, the administration turned around and gave 160 names to the administration. Some of those people are on visas. You don't, in my book, you don't try to appease dictators or tyrants. It's dangerous to do that because there is no end to the demands that a tyrant or a dictator will make. And that's unfortunately what some universities are doing now.
All autocrats attack universities. Students protest. That's what students do. Look at what happened in Bangladesh when the students overthrew the autocratic government. So students protest. Students protested the Vietnam War. Students protested apartheid in South Africa. The indisputable fact that autocrats regard universities as central democratic institutions that they must attack if they are going to destroy democracy.
So is there a climate of fear in universities across the country, do you think?
There is definitely a climate of fear among students across universities, particularly among students who are from other nations, among faculty, particularly faculty from other countries. People are worried about their jobs. They're worried about their kind of academic integrity and freedom of speech.
The whip hand Trump has over universities is the threat to withhold billions of dollars in scientific research funding.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions. And they have $52 billion as an endowment.
The Trump administration made the same threats to universities across the country, like the University of California, Los Angeles, where Jonathan Sasloff teaches law.
The war against universities, again, it's the attack on knowledge workers. He's claiming it has something to do with anti-Semitism, which is garbage. They hire more anti-Semites than crack down on it. Universities are, in many ways, quite susceptible to this because they depend so heavily on federal funding for a lot of scientific research. At my own university, the University of California, this is very, very serious. Lots and lots of people are going to have to be let go, and there is lots of very, very important research that cannot be done anymore.
The hope that what we could do is not only improve the quantity, but also the quality of their lives.
John Quackenbush is a world-renowned genetic scientist at Harvard who for decades has trained leading researchers around the world, developing cutting-edge treatments for cancer and other diseases. The Trump administration abruptly cut off millions of dollars from his research grants.
There was clearly some kind of political motivation behind it. I had a grant that was terminated because we were looking at sex differences in disease, and it was funded through a program at the National Institutes of Health that mandated that scientists look at both sex and gender, things that were perceived to fall in the domain of diversity, equity, inclusion. So anything that sort of rang of that was terminated.
Quackenbush was conducting a critical study on how certain cancers advance at different rates in men and in women. Does it seem to you that the Trump administration is kind of at war with science?
Being on the receiving end of a lot of what happens, it does feel like a war on science and a war on expertise.
That's sort of the standard theory of fascism that...
Jason Stanley has now left his tenured position at Yale University and moved with his family to the University of Toronto.
When Columbia capitulated is when I decided to move to Toronto. First of all, it's not just, the risk the United States falls of falling into fascism, which is, maybe a risk that is now, it's well on its way to being actualized. But it's also that Canada is the world's foremost multiracial democracy. So I have hopes that Canada can be kind of a bulwark for the world against this global fascist threat.
Stanley says he is following in the footsteps of his Jewish grandparents who fled Germany on the eve of the Second World War. Many U.S. academics say they are considering a similar path to escape the Trump war.
They can deep fake your accountant
and sound like my broker too.
Get started with SMM today at tommorrison.uk.
With Fast Signs, see the visual possibility in your business. See it in lights and flags, on a van, in metal, on the floor, in color. With signs and graphics, you can say anything, do anything, be anything. So make your statement. With your masterful team of visual marketing experts, anything is possible. Fast Signs. Make your statement.
Build a website you love with Wix, where your words create your brand. your opportunity, your breakthrough. Feeling a vibe? Run with it. From can't look away to gotta have it. Make every detail yours. Bring out what's hot. Remove what's not. Crystallize it. Instantly, set a tone that speaks in your voice to your audience. Keep moving. Your site grows with you. Add solutions that meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. Smooth to make, easy to love.
For nearly 80 years, Montrealer Frank McGrath went through life thinking he was an only child. That was until a DNA test taken by a Dutch man revealed he actually had a long-lost brother on a different continent.
The first time I saw him, I said to my wife, yeah, that's him.
It was a tearful moment. It was, again, very joyful. So he's my big brother and I'm the little brother.
Finally. The story of how the brothers came together started earlier this year when France's granddaughter received a DNA test as a gift. Amber Hogervors and her twin sister always had questions about their family's past.
We talked about our heritage and why we don't look Dutch and where it could came from.
The woman convinced their mother and France to take the MyHeritage DNA test.
One day I got the email saying I got a match. And it said half-brother, so I texted my mom immediately telling her we have a Canadian half-brother.
And that's our father.
Back in Canada, Frank wanted to learn more about his Irish roots. He knew his parents met in the Netherlands, where his father delivered food to the Dutch during the Second World War.
He then met my mother and got married, and she emigrated as one of the Canadian war brides at the end of January in 1946.
He joined the website hoping to piece together more of his family tree, but he wasn't expecting to find a sibling.
I didn't have any inkling or any idea that he existed.
France didn't have any information on his biological father, but grew up with a stepfather. He's one of thousands of war babies born to European mothers and Canadian soldiers who were serving overseas. After Frank learned about his half-brother, he quickly made plans to travel to the Netherlands with his wife. The brothers stayed in touch, and in December, France, his wife, and Amber traveled to Montreal.
After 78 years, I know from my heritage.
It's the start of a new life, as old as we are. And we hope that we're going to continue to switch back and forth and see each other.
The brothers got to spend St. Nicholas Day together, a Dutch tradition that honors the saint who inspired Santa Claus. It was the first time for Frank, who was proud to say his family puzzle is complete.
It's lovely, because I know what it feels like to have a sister. I have a twin sister. So for my grandfather to have a brother as well, even though he has half-sisters, that's amazing.
Top gift trends. Definitely quarter zips. No.
No.
After the quarter zip, you buy yourself matchas.
Probably like makeup. No idea. I'm thinking about it. An iPhone or anything like new on TikTok. I say Coldplay tickets. Yo, Coldplay's actually fire though. I think everyone needs like a comfy sweater in their life. Maybe like some sort of device.
If you got a PS5, it's really helpful because you can play with your friends.
Clothing for like people in high school.
What about teachers?
Teachers? Like what I would get for a teacher?
A Christmas basket with a bunch of like, I don't know, bath soap. Bath soaps?
Yeah. Gift card. Gift card's always nice. Wine.
You might want to get a student teacher if they need extra help and you need 2 teachers.
Yeah, I agree. Coffee mugs.
Inside of it, matcha.
Magnets, pencils, erasers.
Do you think your teacher wants to get a pencil, an eraser, and a magnet?
They deserve it. I'm joking.
You're watching CBC News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Arsheen Shamaila. Let's take a look at the top stories making headlines today.
Air Transat travelers are anxiously
watching their phones as well as airport arrival and departure boards. The airline's pilots could go on strike as early as 3 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. The threatened action in support of new contract.
I don't disagree with people fighting for their rights to get what they fairly deserve. So if they can reach an agreement that makes both sides happy, I feel that that's important. And it's great that they are able to practice this right.
The union representing the pilots served strike notice over the weekend, meaning they'll be legally allowed to walk off the job. Air Transit is expected to suspend all flights by the end of today if there's no agreement. The airline has been working to get travelers back if they are currently on a trip. But if you're still at your destination and your flight does get canceled, Air Transit says you can book on another airline within 48 hours of your original flight and get a refund for your return ticket. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick joins us now from Canada's busiest airport, Toronto's Pearson International. Tell us more about the situation there. Have you had a chance to talk to some of those travelers?
So it's a mixed bag today, Arthi, of some flights going, some flights not going, unfortunately, for those travelers who were meant to go somewhere today. There are 6 flight cancellations in total today out of various airports. Here in Toronto, there was 1 flight canceled to Cancun and the return flight canceled. The other canceled flights include a Montreal to Cancun trip. Same thing. The flight coming back, not happening, as well as Montreal to Punta Cana. So the airline saying that they are having to do this in preparation of this possible strike tomorrow. They are adding flights today as well, like they did yesterday, to go south to bring passengers back a bit early. So that's people that were meant to fly home tomorrow. They were coming home yesterday and today instead. The airline saying that's involving thousands of passengers from destinations including Mexico, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic. So they say they understand that this situation may cause inconvenience and uncertainty, and that is exactly what we were hearing from some passengers that we met today. This is a family that was set to fly to Punta Cana at 5 p.m. today. Last night they found out their trip was being canceled. They thought their vacation was off. Thankfully, one of those family members woke up really early this morning and saw a notification that they were actually booked on a 9 a.m. flight. So the family members who don't live here in Toronto but in the GTA scrambled to repack essentially their suitcase. They didn't think they were going anywhere today and scrambled to get to the airport to catch that 9 a.m. flight. They got here at 8:20, they say, only to be told they weren't being allowed to board the flight. An Air Transat agent was at the desk, started helping them, working the phones. It was pretty tense for a couple of minutes. We were watching this all unfold. These passengers, understandably, were very frustrated. Here's what one of them told us.
We're the ones really stressing out because we put our money into these flights and everything else, and then you expect people to trust you after you do this, and you want people to fly with you again? That, I don't know, but I don't get it. I can't wrap my head around it. I think it's ridiculous.
So a few minutes after she told us that, thankfully, there was a good ending to this story, Arthi, because they were allowed on their flight. They rushed through security, ran to catch that flight, which was taking off around 9 a.m. So they are headed to their destination. Whether they'll be able to get home in a week's time remains to be seen. The airline essentially saying things could change very quickly. Again, they are saying if no deal reached today, by the end of the day, they'll have to essentially ground their operations, and saying all these measures that they're putting in place could change quickly depending on whether deals reach today or not.
So let's talk about those negotiations then a little bit. What's the current status of those negotiations, those talks between Air Transit and their pilots union?
Well, we know they are ongoing today, so that's an encouraging sign. They have not walked away from the table. They are still trying to get an agreement. We heard from the company this morning saying that they made improved offers last evening, the company says. They say the negotiations are continuing intensively, is the way they're describing them. They say they're working tirelessly and still hope to reach an agreement today in order to minimize disruptions to operations. They say they have put a generous offer on the table. That characterization has been disputed by the union. Here's what else we're hearing from the union. They say in a statement this morning that some progress has been made, but there's still work to do. We're working tirelessly to reach an agreement that achieves the collective priorities of our group. We remain committed to negotiating in good faith until a deal can be reached to avoid a strike. But again, they are in a legal strike position as of 3 a.m. tomorrow, so they could decide at the end of today to pull that trigger or not. Talks could keep continuing if they feel they're making good progress and they're close to getting a deal. But that leaves a lot of passengers, obviously, with travel plans in the coming days, in limbo and having to sit and wait essentially for now. They do have some policies travelers can read on their website, the company website, in terms of their options right now. One of them includes if people want to proactively cancel their own flight if they're flying up until December 12th, they can do that, but they wouldn't get a full refund necessarily, only a travel credit that would have to be used in the next 12 months. If a strike goes ahead and flights are canceled by the airline, it's a different story. So different options for different scenarios. It's really coming down to the wire, Arthi, but what we are hearing from the two sides is that they are talking today.
Okay, thanks for the latest on this, Megan. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick at Toronto's Pearson Airport. Conservative motion that was put forward in regards to pipeline projects to the Pacific and also an oil tanker moratorium, the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act. Interesting there to hear him say that there have now been, he was putting forward amendments because of the Liberal government saying that there are certain specificities in this motion that they do not necessarily agree with, that do not entail what the Memorandum of Understanding had in it when we're talking about these pipeline projects in that MOU between Alberta and Ottawa. So adding, for example, the carbon pricing system, Indigenous co-ownership, engaging with British Columbia as amendments to this Conservative motion and trying to push the Liberal government to accept this motion. I want to bring in the CBC's Janice McGregor, who's been listening into this. Very interesting strategy, very strategic, what we saw Pierre Poilievre do right there.
Yeah, playing into what we've been trying to explain all morning, which is that this is actually a very tactical political game we see unfolding here. So the Liberals were saying we're not going to get sucked into this. We're not going to vote in favor of this motion because it doesn't resemble the Memorandum of Understanding signed with the Alberta government in its entirety. They were going to use that as their reason to oppose it. And now Poilievre sees that, puts another card on the table, says, well, actually, I'm prepared to change it. So it does include all the things that you say it doesn't include. Now what are you going to do? So your ball, Liberals. I think we wait to see whether this changes your mind or whether there's still something about the amendments that doesn't fully comply with what they would want to see written. This remains an attempt by the Conservatives to force the Liberals to vote in favor of a pipeline to the West Coast. This remains an attempt to put people on the record, I guess is the best way to say it. And they're doing it in the knowledge that there are some people in the Liberal caucus, and you heard Poilievre refer to them as a group of people who'd rather keep it in the ground, who remain profoundly uncomfortable with the idea of ramping up oil and gas production and enabling a pipeline through a memorandum of understanding like this. And part of how the Liberals have been able to keep those folks in the tent have been to say to them, look, there are all these conditions, all these things that they would have to do, hard things, let's be clear, things with carbon pricing and agreements with Indigenous peoples and neighboring jurisdictions and so on, that the proponent would have to do quite a bit of work to accomplish. And then and only then would they consider approving and altering the moratorium on West Coast tanker traffic. Just to remind people, though, we did have earlier this morning in the foyer of the House of Commons, a bunch of ministers come out as a group and explain why they didn't feel they could vote in favor of the motion as originally written. So as you're listening to these clips, remember, this isn't them responding to this new amendment now. This is what they were saying about the original motion, starting with Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson, explaining why it was so important that the MOU was balancing off all these different conditions that a future pipeline partner would need to achieve.
What businesses want is certainty. What businesses want is the ability to allocate capital and understand what kind of return they're going to earn on that capital.
This motion doesn't reflect the full agreement, and actually I think says a lot about what the Conservative Party is. You're right. It says that it's a party that would not respect the rights of neighboring jurisdictions.
Today's motion that's being put on the floor is not a no vote for the MOU. It's a no vote against the Conservatives playing games and creating optics and wasting parliamentary time when they should be voting on things that are way more important.
So their argument was that the Conservatives were cherry-picking only the part of the MOU that they liked and ignoring other parts. But now that they've changed it, we'll have to hear from the Liberals again to see whether they will change how they're going to vote.
And, you know, we continue to track what is happening right now in the House as that debate continues. You've been tracking it all morning for us. And we also heard from coastal First Nations leaders as well. So let's talk a little bit more about what else this discussion has been.
Yeah, and I want to lean in on some Conservative voices that have spoken so far in the debate as well. There are a couple of First Nations leaders in the Conservative caucus. Billy Morin, who represents Northwest Edmonton riding, as well as Ellis Ross, who represents Skeena-Bulkley Valley, which is a riding on BC's northern coast. And they had a very interesting exchange not too long before Poilievre spoke, actually, where they, were saying that they don't believe they need the Liberals to give them a lecture on what their treaty rights and title are all about, and that they don't appreciate this dynamic where sort of what's good for Canada and what Canadians might want is being pitted against First Nations interests. They believe that these things could be one and the same. Here's a little bit more from Ellis Ross speaking earlier today in the House.
We're trying to put this motion on the floor today because Canadians deserve an answer, yes or no. In BC, the Liberal Party will tell BCers that there will be no pipeline built. But in Alberta, those same Liberals will say that, yes, a pipeline will be built. Which is it? This is the first opportunity for the Liberals to tell the truth and their intentions to build Canada strong, to turn us into an energy superpower.
And that's the thing that it's so complex and frankly confounding about pipeline politics in British Columbia generally. There are different First Nations voices with very different perspectives on this. Also earlier this morning, we had a news conference hosted by the Assembly of First Nations at their office. There are coastal First Nations voices in town. They continue to absolutely oppose the idea of having more oil tanker traffic off their coast. They don't want to see ships loaded down with bitumen moving through waters that they believe are sensitive and sacred to them. Here is one of their leaders, the head of the Haida Nation.
We do see, a lot of this as just politics, but why we're here today is because this is our home, and any of these conversations happening out here in Ottawa without us being part of it, we take it very seriously, and it's important that we're here to make sure our voice is heard.
They have traveled to Ottawa. They will be in the gallery looking down on MPs as they make their vote later on this afternoon. If anybody needed reminding of exactly how high the stakes are and how strongly people feel about this.
Janice, thanks for this. That's the CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The family of a Quebec teenager who died in a police shooting are launching a lawsuit against the Longueuil police force. Nouran Rezai was killed after a 911 call to the area reported a group of armed people. Rezai was unarmed at the time of the shooting. The case has drawn significant public scrutiny and fears the investigation will not lead to justice. The family and their lawyers spoke earlier today, and the CBC's Hilary Johnstone has been tracking this story for us. And of course, before we get to the details, a warning for our viewers that some of the information you'll bring us may be disturbing.
Absolutely, including some videos that we're also going to be showing our audience, which were released just a little bit earlier on this morning by some lawyers that are representing the family. They have come out and announced that they have now filed a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit worth more than $2 million. This is against the police service in Longueuil and also against the city of Longueuil itself. On the left-hand side there of that photograph, you are looking at that 15-year-old high school student who was killed after this interaction with a police officer back at the end of September, so just a couple of months ago. An investigation, an independent investigation into what led up to his death has been ongoing for months now. The family and the lawyers representing his family, though, say that they do not believe that the police officers who responded acted with an appropriate amount of force. And all of this happened after a 911 call reporting that there were a number of people in the area dressed in black clothing who were behaving in a suspicious way and who were armed, according to the person who phoned 911, that there was some sort of weapon that was visible. The police respond, and as we see in a video that the family's lawyers have now released, only a few seconds transpires from when a police car arrives on the scene, where you see a number of youth who are sitting on a curb in a residential area, until you then hear 2 gunshots. And we know that that 15-year-old later died because of those gunshot wounds. At the time, like I'm saying here, it was believed that these group of youth, that they may be armed, but that independent body that looks at police in the province of Quebec have since come out and confirmed that the only weapon found at the scene belonged to the police officer, that teenager, that 15-year-old, was not armed. We are going to show you now a little bit of video that lawyers representing that 15-year-old's family released to the public a short time ago. We do want to warn you that you will hear the sound of gunshots and possibly some explicit language as well. Here is a little bit of that video. So that is just a little bit of that video. Like we say, it is graphic. We're going to play a little bit more video here. I'm going to talk over it while we're watching it. This is another video that the family has released. It shows a group of 6 young people, including that 15-year-old, who are standing or sitting on the curb in that residential area. This is 4 minutes, they say, before police arrive on the scene. And they say what this shows is a group of young people who were not acting in a criminal way, who were not armed, who instead were sitting on the side of the road in a residential neighborhood. So if we can, let's show that video. This is what they had released a short time ago. So this is what you're looking at here. This is 4 minutes before the police arrive, and you can see that group. There's 6 of them there, including that 15-year-old. They're sitting on the curb and seem not doing a lot other than sitting there. And the family of this 15-year-old says that his backpack did not have a weapon in it. Instead, it had school books in it, which is part of the reason that they are now launching this civil lawsuit. They say because an officer arrived on the scene and shot and killed their teenager, who they say was not doing anything at the time. I want to bring you now a little bit of what we heard from that 15-year-old's mother earlier this morning when she spoke alongside the lawyers representing her family.
Police officers are supposed to be trained. They must make sure there is a real danger before shooting. We want justice. We want this officer to be punished, and the police department to take responsibility. This must never happen again. There cannot be another neuron.
So the mother there calling for justice. The other concern that the family is raising is the fact that it took 5 hours for police to notify them that their 15-year-old had died, even though they only lived 10 minutes away from the scene where he died, and even though some of the other young people he was with told police within a matter of moments who he was, his name and his identity. The family upset that it took 5 hours for them to be notified.
And we know, too, that the body or the agency investigating this incident is also facing some criticism now about how that is being handled.
That's right. And the director of that agency, the Bureau des Enquêtes Indépendantes, actually took the extraordinary step of holding a press conference a while ago to try to defend the integrity and the independence of that body. Concerns in the past, because even though this body has investigated a number of police shootings in recent years, very, very few charges have ever been laid. So the family is concerned whether or not they will ever see justice. And the lawyers also have some concerns as well. They have made clear today that the civil lawsuit that the family has launched does not target the BEI, but they still have concerns about the fact that that BEI, that's that independent body, that they handed over their files, according to the family and the family's lawyers, to the Montreal Police Service so that the Montreal Police Service could look into this. They have concerns about how independent it really is. So here's a little bit of what we've heard from the lawyers talking about their concerns with how the officers responded that day.
They will say that this was a high-risk intervention because of the possible presence of armed, but they have to act accordingly. They have to plan it. They have to have backup. It's only there was supposed to be a group of 15 to 20 people. So there arrived 2 police officers there, and they just arrived in the middle, and they, if there was the case, they put themselves in danger. They have to plan, and then they have to adapt to what they see.
So that lawsuit has now been filed. Of course, we'll wait for any reaction either from the BEI or from the city of Longueuil or the Longueuil Police Service. But for now, that lawsuit has been filed, civil lawsuit worth more than $2 million.
Thanks for this.
Thank you.
That is the CBC's Hilary Johnstone reporting.
U.S. authorities have released 2 new photographs of Canadian fugitive Ryan Wedding. This comes as the FBI intensifies its search for the suspected drug kingpin. He's accused of running a criminal empire, shipping drugs from Mexico and South America to the United States and Canada. The new obtained photo is believed to have been taken in Mexico last summer, and it shows Wedding in bed, revealing a large tattoo of a lion on his chest. The second photo we're going to show you here was published yesterday by the U.S. Embassy in Mexico. It appears to be an older photo of Wedding in a green T-shirt with a shaved head. Officials did not say where and when the driver's license or passport-style photo was taken. Wedding is a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder who's on the FBI's list of 10 most wanted fugitives.
The violence, brazen and reckless, and now police say part of an organized criminal network in Ontario and Quebec.
These suspects certainly did not discriminate. They showed complete disregard for the value of human life, and they left hundreds of victims in their wake.
To underscore the point, police releasing these stunning videos showing a shooting into a crowded hospital emergency room, store windows smashed, employees shot during armed robberies, a man gunned down in his driveway. Not random gang violence, police say, but planned mayhem that happened over the course of a year.
This was not a traditional street gang, but rather a coalition of adult men from different groups and locations who would align themselves for profit-motivated violence.
In what they've dubbed Project Wrangler, 13 people have been arrested, 150 charges laid, mostly against men in their late teens and early 20s, but police say teens as young as 14 were involved.
The group recruited and exploited younger individuals, using them as drivers and lookouts, and in some cases using them directly in the criminal activity themselves.
Part of a trend of increasingly violent crimes being committed by younger people.
15 years ago, we supported a lot of young people that were, maybe committing, petty acts of mischief. The pendulum has swung way the opposite way.
They're being groomed in real time through their phones.
Those who deal with these kinds of cases say young recruits are easy to manipulate and face little punishment if caught.
The jobs oftentimes begin smaller and then they progress. And oftentimes what ends up happening is that a young person finds themselves in a situation where either they have to prove themselves or perhaps they find that perhaps, they got in too deep.
Police point out another common theme too. Nearly all of those charged were out on bail.
We're sorry. Sorry for setting your standards so high. Purdy's Chocolatier, ruining other chocolate since 1907.
What is SMM? The Simplistic Mobility Method is our online mobility program that teaches you how to move better, feel better, and keeps you doing the things that you love to do. You don't need any equipment and you can start right now. There's no subscriptions. Just head over to tommorrison.uk to check it out.
With Fast Signs, see the visual possibility in your business. See it in lights and flags, on a van, in metal, on the floor, in color. With signs and graphics, you can say anything, do anything, be anything. So make your statement. With your masterful team of visual marketing experts, anything is possible. Fast Signs, make your statement.
The world of logistics today really demands agility more than anything else. At Maersk, we've created a global network which doesn't only include ocean, air, or fulfillment solutions, but now also incorporates last mile services, ground freight, and trade and compliance consulting.
CBC News World exclusive for you. Devin Haru of CBC Sports got a chance to sit down for a one-on-one interview with Canadian swimming star Penny Oleksiak. It's the first time she's spoken publicly since her 2-year suspension from competition. A stunning situation for Canada's most decorated female Olympian.
Oh, that's incredible. 16-year-old. Canada's going to medal in this, and the color will be bronze. And Oleksiak has the gold medal.
Oleksiak first became a sensation as a 16-year-old at the 2016 Rio Games. She won 4 medals in her debut, gold, silver, and 2 bronze. She won 3 more at the Tokyo Games in 2021. Oleksiak is part of a golden generation for Canada in the pool. But 2 weeks ago, she made headlines again, but this time it was for a 2-year ban imposed by the International Testing Agency, which manages anti-doping programs. The suspension was handed out as punishment for what's known as whereabouts failures, basically not being available for drug testing. That happened 3 times over a 12-month period.
Can you shed light on how this whereabouts situation happened?
Dang, how it happened. Genuine mistakes, I guess, is all I can really say. You have an expectation as an athlete to fill out your whereabouts all the time and where you're going and what you're doing, and having that hour every day that you should be where you're expected to be. And I've always been really diligent with that through my career, but you have those days where you want to go to training in the afternoon instead of the morning, and you just forget to update it that day, or you stay at a friend's house and you just weren't expecting to stay at your friend's house that night. You know, like it's just genuine mistake is really all I can really chalk it up to.
A lot of people are going to have a lot of thoughts about this, Penny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to tell you that. I think in some cases they go 1, 2, we understand that. 3, maybe they're less forgiving. And I think a lot of the questions people have are around the fact that you did miss these tests and